Chapter 5 of The Mouse and His Child. The mouse and his child stood in the darkness and heard the wind whistling over the ice and snow. Under the wind the winter silence waited, and the ice creaked with the cold. Hours passed, and the sky was growing light, when the child, who stood facing the bank, said, "Someone's coming." "Is it Muskrat?" asked the father. "I don't know," said the child. "He doesn't look like anything like Manny Rat. He's larger and stouter, he has a different kind of tail, and he has a nice face, and he limps." The muskrat, who looked somewhat like a large brown meadow mouse, approached them slowly. He had lost one leg in a trap, and as he walked, he bobbed with a step, step, hop, step, step, hop. His whole manner suggested a continuous train of solid, round, furry thought, and he was mumbling softly to himself. Muskrat looked up as he bumped into the mouse and his child. "You're a little early," he said, "but that's all right. We can start right here. The lesson for today is them tables. Begin." He settled back on his haunches and waited. "I don't know what you mean," said the mouse father. "Very well," said Muskrat. "I'll help you. 10 times use equals—" "I don't know," said father. "Really, Equals bad," said Muskrat, whacking the ice with the flat of his tail. "You were supposed to have learned that." "I'm sorry," said the mouse father. "Don't be sorry," said Muskrat. "Come next time with your lesson prepared. Continue, please." "Them plus trap times use equals worse?" said the mouse child. "Good boy," said Muskrat. He came closer and peered nearsightedly at the father and son. "I beg your pardon," he said. "I took you two for 2 of my regular pupils. You are new here, then?" He wrinkled his nose. "You smell a little lemmy. Been in a trap, have you? You must tell me about it. Come over to my place, and visit for a while." "You'll have to wind me up," said the father. "There's a key in the middle of my back." Muskrat looked at the key. "Of course," he said, as he wound it. "I remember now. Key times winding equals go." She had just such a key in her back. "Oh, who?" said the father. "The tin seal," said Muskrat. "The seal," said the child. "Did she have a platform on her nose?" "No," said Muskrat. "There was only a metal rod that turned, and that was how she used to wind up string for me. Many a cozy evenings we spent that way. Charming young lady." He smiled, lapsing into a silent reverie. "Where had she come from?" asked the child. "Who?" said Muskrat. "The seal." "Ah, the seal. She had been travelling with a rabbit flea circus, but the whole concern broke up not far from here. A fox ate the rabbit, the fleas joined the fox, and the seal came to stay with me." "Where is she now?" asked the father as they walked toward the other side of the pond. "I don't know," said Muskrat. "She found the life here dull after a time and went off with a kingfisher. Was she a friend of yours?" "We were close," said the father, "long ago." "Well, that's how it is," said Muskrat. He shook his head thoughtfully as he went with his step, step, hop, step, step, hop. "Why, into here often equals there, and so one moves about." "You have a strange way of speaking," said the mouse father. "I'm always looking for the hows and whys and the whats," said Muskrat. "That's why I speak as I do. You've heard of Muskrat's much and little, of course." "No," said the child. "What is it?" Muskrat stopped, cleared his throat, ruffled his fur, drew himself up, and said in ringing tones, "Why, times how equals what?" He paused to let the words take effect. "What's Muskrat's much and little?" he said. He ruffled his fur again and slapped the ice with his tail. "Why times how equals what?" he repeated. Strikes you all of a heap the first time you hear it, doesn't it? Pretty well covers everything. I'm a little surprised that you haven't heard of it before, I must say. It caused a good deal of comment both over and under the pond, and almost everyone agrees that the ripples from it are ever widening." "Your work is, of course, known everywhere," said the mouse father, "and although we are not acquainted with Muskrat's much and little, we have heard a great deal about you." "Ah," said Muskrat. He smiled a little and groomed his fur complacently. "Yes," he said, "I have some small reputation, perhaps. I'm not entirely unknown. Not that I care much about those things." He wound up the father again, and they continued across the ice. "We have travelled so far to see you," said the father, "in the hope of learning how to be like me," said the muskrat. "I thank you humbly for your compliment, and I have the most profound respect for your admiration. Yes, there is a small but growing circle of students and followers whom I hope to guide you along the path to self-winding," said the father. "I beg your pardon," said Muskrat. "What did you say?" "Self-winding," said the child. "We want to be self-winding so we can wind ourselves up." The parrot said that you fixed broken wind-ups. "Can you fix us?" I'm sorry, I have too much fun with that. "I'm afraid that's a little out of my line," said Muskrat. "Oh, I've tinkered with clockwork now and then, but I've long grown beyond the limits of my mere mechanical invention. That's applied thought, you see, and my real work is in the realm of pure thought. There's nothing quite like purity of pure thought. It's the cleanest work it is, you might say." He nodded with a mumbled softly to himself as he bobbed along with his uneven limping gait. The sun was up when they reached the beaver lodge, and the snowy dome gleamed rosy in the morning light. Muskrat sniffed as he looked up in the structure that towered above him. Its snow-covered smoothness broken by projecting brush and twigs, and the cut-ends of saplings. They came here a few seasons back, he said, when there was nothing here but a little trickle through the grass. They built the dam, made the pond, put up this lodge, and they pretty well run the whole place now. There was a murmur of voices inside the lodge. Muskrat leaned close to listen. Always the same thing, he said. How many aspens they've cut down, how many birches, how they're going to improve the dam next year. Dull fellows. Yet I suppose they have their place. It is, after all, their pond that supports my pure thought. And in spite of the hurly-burly of industry and the working-class atmosphere, my roots are here. Not only my roots, but my stalks and leaves, arrowhead and smartweed, cattails and wild rice. Yes, he said, this is my house, and where my work has brought me pond width, respect, and esteem. Let the beavers have their wealth. I am content with the treasures of my mind. He smiled with satisfaction and limped along beside the mouse and his child with a step-step hop. Step-step hop. Here's my place, said Muskrat as they came to the smaller of the two domes on the ice. But we can't get into it. The entrance is underwater, from a tunnel on the far bank. From inside the lodge came the sound of two young muskrats laughing. Merry little rascals, said Muskrat. That must be Jeb and Zeb, come for their lesson. Hee-hee, said one of the voices inside the lodge. He times who equals hee-hoo. Rankum times dinkum equals rinkum-dinkum-doo, said the other. Man, rinkum-dinkum-doo looks a lot like Icelandic for a second. A rinkum-dink. A rinkum-dinkum. That could actually be a word. What are you talking about? Asked the mouse child. They're making fun of mice, much and little, said Muskrat, managing a smile. High-spirited lads. Jeb, said the voice of Zeb. What do you want to be when you grow up? A beaver, replied Jeb without hesitation. A beaver, said Zeb. A beaver, echoed Muskrat. Right, said Jeb, clicking his teeth and whacking the floor of the lodge as hard as he could with the flat of his tail. Beavers do things. They cut down trees, chonk bonk, make dams, splash kerplonk. Beavers get rich. Maybe old Muskrat knows all that stuff too, said Zeb. Maybe he could cut down trees if he wanted to. Who, him? Snorted Jeb. He can't do anything. My daddy says old Muskrat got caught in trap once and it shook his brains up. All is good now for us teaching kids them tables. Ahem, said Muskrat. He climbed into the lodge and jumped up and down several times, stamping heavily on the roof. There was an instant silence inside. Boys, he called. Yes, sir, came the polite response. No lesson today, said Muskrat. Very busy. Great many things to do. Come back next week. Bye-bye. There was a single splash inside the lodge as Jeb and Zeb dove into the water and swam home under the ice. You were saying, began the father, hoping to bring the muskrat back to the subject of self-winding. Muskrat turned away from him. Crushed, he said in a choked voice. I am utterly and completely crushed. Good for nothing but to teach children them tables. That's the whole point. That's what the whole pond thinks of me. He whispered brokenly. That's the sort of respect they had for me. You mustn't be so upset, said the father. Your work is admired everywhere. That's what I come to you for. Beavers! Hissed Muskrat, doing a little limping dance of irritation. He began to pace back and forth slowly. Step, step, hop, step, step, hop. Chonk, bonk, he said. Beavers do things, eh? Well, very well, then I'll do something. What will you do? Asked the mouse child. I don't know, said Muskrat, but it'll be something that'll make them sit up and take notice. His pacing quickened and he step, step, hoppity, step, step, hoppity. Then he stopped. I can't pace right anymore, he said. My best much and little thinking was done before I lost my leg in the trap. I can't reason as I did when I was whole. There's a universal rhythm that my mind must catch, and I used to feel it. Now I don't. My mental powers are hobbled like my gait. Perhaps, said the mouse father, lurching ahead on his front leg, if we paced for you until you solve your problem, you might be able to help us with ours. What's that? Said Muskrat. What's what? Said father. The problem you want help with, said Muskrat. Self-winding, said the father. No need to shout, said the Muskrat. Yes, that seems fair enough. And your pacing, while lacking something in style, is nonetheless steady. Let's go to my workroom and get started. Alright, Christy, we'll find out what happens to that tomorrow. No, we'll find out that 2 days from now because we're going to go read some more wonderful poetry tomorrow because I want to alternate. So, with that in mind, I'll be mailing something to you very soon. So, keep checking your mailbox. I'm really glad to hear things in the cycling camp went well. And I can't wait to hear the stories of them that you said you're going to write a big message. So I'm looking forward to that. But no pressure. If you're busy, don't worry about it. And my reading alarm is about to go off. I love you dearly. Sleep well, keep camp, find a llama, carry on. And I'll be back home very soon. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you. Oh, it's killing me. It's killing me. It'll be nice. It'll be wonderful. I love you, Christy. Good night. I don't want to go. I love being here, looking into the camera. It's nice. But I never want to stop reading these stories. They're always so much nice to do. Sometimes I wonder what my body language says, but really I'm just trying to keep myself steady and in the camera. Alright. I love you, Christy. Sleep well, keep calm, find a llama, carry on, and I'll talk to you come soon. I love you, Christy. Good night.